Well, good morning or good afternoon if you're in North America, and good evening if you're joining us from the UK, Ireland, Europe, the Middle East, and hopefully there'll be a number of folks joining us from India, where Hector Salazar, our guest for today, is. Welcome, Hector, and thanks, or welcome back, I should say. You've been on so many of the expert panels with me, North America, Europe, Middle East, and India. So as I said, thanks very much for joining us. How's it going there?
Thank you, Larry, for hosting me today. And well, everything is going very well. So we are right now at the beginning of the summer here in Bathinda.
Well, as you were saying to me before, everything's going really well except for COVID. Certainly, where you are up there in Punjab province, and also where I'm from in Canada, and where your family's from in Canada as well. Now, everybody, Hector and I go back a long way. Hector used to work for a Canadian company, Shaw, back around 2007. And Hector and I met at a conference in Las Vegas, 2009. And by then, I think you were already working over in Singapore at that stage of the game, weren't you, Hector?
Yes, sir. I was in those days finishing my project in Saudi Arabia for Cho, and I was in the process to go to Singapore.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. Shaw was certainly an interesting company to work with, and probably help prepare you and me for just about anything you could get thrown at you going forward. Hector, I should probably just for everybody introduce you a bit. Hector is the general manager of construction safety at the HPCL refinery and the construction project in Bathinda, which is in northwest sort of India, up in Punjab province. And I don't know if any of you had a chance to see some of the things I posted on social media just about what the area was like. But a bit like going north in Canada, I guess, too, right, Hector? But you've got certainly in terms of just things like helmets on motorcycles compared to, say, the rest of India, you're one in 20 people out of about 500 that I took pictures of when I was there for 3 days. So very, very high level of risk acceptance in the area. And Hector is managing a mega project. I thought it was 15,000 people on site. Hector, you're telling me now that it's a little bit more than 15,000. So just tell us a bit about the size and the scope of the project, Hector. I know it's one chemical plant, I think an expansion or a brand new refinery. I'm sorry, I couldn't remember from when I was there, but it was over a year ago, everybody, just before COVID hit, that I was up there. But Hector, tell us a bit about the size and the scope of this project.
Well, Larry, this project is about doing an expansion for a petrochemical unit in the refinery. So we are adding one cracker unit with the intention to produce all the subproducts that we need to have in operation, the unit for high-density polyethylene and the PPU unit, the polypropylene unit, and the butene unit. So basically, it looks like the project that we did in Singapore for ExxonMobil in the time that I was working for Cho. And actually, it's more or less the same technology that we're using here. And but of course, it's a huge project. I don't know if you remember how large is a unit that's gonna be managing 1.2 million of metric tons annual of production, in the cracker unit, and going to be with the potential to be expanded to 1.5. So we're talking about a huge, massive project. So this project start the conceptual part in 2016, and then start all the civil part in 2017. So we were planning, Larry, to finish the project actually at the beginning was in December 2020, but because coronavirus, of course, these dates were changed to April 2021, and now, so we're looking forward, maybe we will be finishing around September 2021. So that's more or less where we're going.
And that a lot of that just because of COVID. And for those of you who weren't or didn't get to attend some of the expert panels, Hector was kind enough to join us on a number of them that we did on COVID. It's not over till it's over, and it's still not over yet either, Hector. I had Anthony on the show talking about, pandemic management and mismanagement, and then we kind of had him back on for a special show just a little while ago to sort of talk about these waves. You've got how many people in camp there? 3?
So in total, right now is 24,000 workers living in the camp. So, and this is maybe the peak that we're going to have in the whole project. So when we were, that before coronavirus, we were 18,000 people. And then after coronavirus, this manpower come down to around 12,000 people. So we lost a very good number of people during the coronavirus.
Well, I remember you said a bit about that on one of the shows, but also that to a certain extent you were saying it kind of helped keeping them in camp because at least that way it was a bit controlled. And once they went out, away for leave or whatever it was and came back, things were much more difficult. But I remember being there, like this was February of 2020, and
2020, yeah.
Yeah, thousands of workers coming in every day. I mean, just the room where we were getting our visitor badges, where people were having, even if you just had to go into the admin room, right? Like us, we weren't doing anything. It's not like I ever do any work really. I'm never picking up a hammer or ever actually, a shovel or helping somebody do some real work anywhere. But nevertheless, I mean, that room was full of contractors and people, and you'd see them just coming in droves. And then one lone Hector, and I'm looking at you all by going, wow, that is amazing. What I think is, like, I know you had shortly after startup there was a SIF, but after I got there, and you were telling me about how many, then 18,000, it's now up to 24,000 people, and there has not been, is this correct? There has not been a serious injury or fatality since I was there. And by the way, everybody, they did all this without my help. I mean, we were hoping to help them, but they had the nerve to achieve all of this really without our help. So anyhow, Hector, is that correct though? Really, without a SIF, 24,000 people contracted?
Yes, so that Larry, is very challenging when you have a project with this number of people, and more considering the high rotation of the workforce. That when we're looking in our records for safety orientation, when we see the number of people coming in and coming out in every stage of the project, we're saying that per every man on site, we have been mobilizing around 10 to 12 workers. So practically what I'm telling you is that every 2 months, you are talking to new workers. You have new people in the field. It's very challenging from the communication standpoint.
No kidding. Well, this is one of the things on the expert panel, Hector, when I remember there was you and Ahmed from Bahrain Petroleum Company, and they were, I think, had even a few 30,000 folks on site at one stage of the game, and the session was about zero harm, everybody, and should you or should you not have zero harm in your mission statement. And the gist of the show really was that there's a difference between a zero harm mindset, or trying to instill a zero harm mindset in your folks, and actually being able to achieve zero harm for 30,000 people forever and ever. Okay, like, you know, especially in terms of mathematical reality and regression to the mean, you know, it's going to be impossible to stay at zero. But that doesn't mean you can't instill a mindset of zero harm within your people. Now, when we talked about, can you get that mindset beyond your own permanent employees and take it out to contractors, the challenge is, to a certain degree, right, Hector, if you don't, bad things are going to happen, right? You want people to be looking out for the environment. You want them obviously to be looking out for their own safety, and the, you know, obviously the operational integrity, everything, right? It's important that you get, now, to get that mindset to contractors is challenging enough. If that's going to change, like with thousands of people every 2 months, how did you start that off? Like when you came on board, like with I don't know if you came on board at the same time with Ian or he brought you on board. Ian Thorpe is also the counterpart there, who's in charge of health and safety for the whole site. Just an excellent gentleman. And I now I lost the bet, Ian. So, you know, now I got to come back there and definitely help out. Only this time it's a bit for free. Anyhow, Hector, tell me, what did you like with the leadership? How did you start with the leadership group, and then with the contractors, and then with the employees? I mean, like this is a huge achievement in my opinion. So, like, tell me how, like, it didn't happen out of nowhere. It happened with a lot of planning and forethought, rather. So, dude.
Well, Larry, when I came here, I found already that Ian was doing some work with this approach, talking incident and injury-free workplace. Right. So he was working based on that. So the first approach that I was doing was actually to the leadership. I was pointing straightforward to the leadership in the contractors, trying to engage the resident construction managers and people from the different contractors to make them understand that doing safety is a good business. So I think that in that moment, I was working in only two directions, to be honest with you, because when I came here, the project was already going on. They were already finishing the civil part. So I missed the first part of the project. In that time, in the worst moment of the project, they actually reached.
Hector, sorry to interrupt, but you missed the part of the project where the contracts were being written and the expectations and the objectives in the contracts were being written. So that's a huge step. Did Ian get, in your opinion, I imagine he did he get most of the important things covered with all of those guys, so that you weren't walking into a nightmare, landmine?
So, many things were covered pretty well, Larry, but of course, there is a lot of lesson learned from what happened here from the contractual standpoint, okay? However, that's the reason I'm telling you that when I step in the leadership standpoint, I have to focus in the things that I can do quickly to produce a fast result. And was actually just to get give the sense to the management that they can manage safety. That safety is not a luck, that you are not lucky, that you can actually do actions that can impact the performance and can produce results. So because many construction managers from subcontractors, they don't know, they don't believe they can do it. They all the time. You get the point. So
I was talking with some of them in the room where we're doing the test. And I'm saying, yeah, I said to him, I said, yeah, but you don't have to get hurt today, do you? And he said, no.
Yeah, they don't believe, if they don't know that they can manage, that they can actually do actions that can impact the performance. And once they impact the performance and they see that it's positive for them from the company, that they make the company to be more efficient, be better, functioning better, that they start to be considered with different, looking with different eyes from their clients, immediately they start to see this is beneficial for me. Yeah, now they have access to many different kind of communication with their clients. So that improved the relationship.
Well, it was obvious when I got there because you had the session organized with all the major contractors that were on site. And it was 2.5 hours. And then we had a little bit of time for questions and answers. And I haven't spoken to a more interested, energetic, cooperative, like that was a good audience of folks to talk to. I mean, I thought I was going to be able to hear the bullets loading into the chambers, Hector. And it was just the opposite, really. I remember some of them talking with them afterwards, and I was really impressed. Now, granted, they worked with some other big companies, some that we'd worked with as well too, right? And so, they were sort of familiar with the concepts, and that was. But I mean, overall, though, there was like 150 supervisors you had in that room, and they were happy. Yep. They were happy to be there, and they stayed, and they asked, questions, and so, they
value the opportunity, Larry. They value the opportunity to talk to you, to know about your approach for safety. They're learning. So this is actually what is happening. These people understand we are learning, and whatever we're learning is helping us to move forward.
Hector, that doesn't happen to me everywhere I go when I get to talk to the contractors. That's what I'm trying to get across. Usually they're there going, here we go. I got to go here. They made us go. Try not to fall asleep and look rude, like they're really like that, right? And that's all I'm saying, everybody. It wasn't like that. I was obvious, and they're contractors, and you're in the sticks, okay? So, this was not, and it was hundreds of them, and it was not what I expected at all. I was really, so this is, when I got asked, and so I think I have a webinar, podcast about culture, and I said you can feel it when it's there, and I could feel it at your site, and it's one of the reasons I was so impressed. That it seemed to me, even when talking with the management group, again, lots of time. They weren't in a rush to get out of the room. They wanted to hear more about it, and they looked like it. How much time did it take you, like literally in hours, Hector, if you could? To get the leadership group and those contracting managers and supervisors, how much time did it take you? How many one-on-ones? Can you tell us how you actually did it?
Well, that I use something that I call like the multi-level approach, because the first one is going to the formal process, that is going to the performance review meetings that we have every 2 weeks. So, and the intention is to go into those meetings and show their performance to them based in something that we call the loss prevention indicators, and made them seeing their results and plan for the next week. But the second level of relationship is actually walking the area every day systematically, is separating in blocks the different areas, going area by area, visiting the site, and then going and visit the RCM from this company and open a conversation with this person to establish a relationship.
What's RCM?
It's a resident construction manager.
Okay, RCM.
So what I was doing actually was every day, and in the morning and then in the afternoon, picking one area, going to this area, walking the area to see what's going on with this particular contractor, and then finishing my walkthrough in the office of the resident construction manager and open the conversation with him in a very informal way. Why? Because I was looking to open a communication. I would like to hear the problems. I would like to make them feel comfortable with me and make them feel that if their first score in the loss prevention indicator was 58%, they don't need to feel embarrassed for that. They need to recognize, number one, and number two, identify that he have a lot of room for improvement, that it's going to be fantastic for him, because that's mean that he every day he can show that he can do it better. Yeah, it's a great opportunity for the company to show that they're able to do that. So of course, that doing all this engagement, I think the first moment that I feel that we have clicked, I start here 1st of May of 2019, and the first time that I feel the click in the meeting with the contractor was in July 2019. So 3 months later, in that meeting was the first moment that this guy stopped to be complaining about why we're going to have this score, how you calculate this score, how the system works. I would like to understand how you do this evaluation. And then later they start to accept it, number one. And number two, they start to see that when they were doing specific actions that we were prescribing them to do it in the field, they were bringing results and their safety performance was improving every single week. So when they start to see that they were actually managing the process, they start to get motivated and getting engaged. Yeah.
Hector, I mean, it's brilliant. I mean, the question I was going to ask you was, did you not get a ton of resistance at the beginning to the scoreboard? Because, nobody, was the thing coming up, another expert panel on just culture and accountability, right? We want accountability, but then typically people argue with your measurement, audit or other things and say it's not fair. So you think almost 3 months, you were saying, from sort of May, June, July before that. And was that just one person or one manager that was resistant, or would you say that was more it took about that long for them? Because if you've got them to accept this scoreboard, and they can control the inputs, and you can give them that feeling of control versus, I've just got to hope that nobody gets hurt feeling, that's huge, especially for the contractors.
Absolutely. Larry, you're always going to have resistance, and still now, 2 years after, I have contractors that still are in the bottom two. There's the bottom two contractors that I have out of 25. They have a low performance. So, and of course, these two contractors are the ones where we are supporting and supplementing their resources with our resources to helping them to move forward. So we're providing them with more supervision from our side, from the construction standpoint, from the safety standpoint, and we are helping them to try to move forward for the situation they have. So we know that for them, the scope of work is not only because of them as a company, it's also because the scope of work that we gave to them is really huge, is too much, and have been very difficult to manage for them. So we have been stepping forward. We have to step in and as an owner, and also our partner in this project, EIL, they also step forward with us. And what we're doing is supporting their performance and helping them to move forward to deliver the project. So that's the situation. Of course, that, Larry, when you show the score and you see the order of the contractors by the different rates that they got, of course, that this hit in the heart to the resident construction manager. Yeah.
Right.
Because they start to feel like, oh my God, I'm being right now on the spot in this situation.
Well, and it's also pretty obvious too that the two bottom people, or the two bottom contractors, are the ones that are complaining about the legitimacy of the scoreboard. That doesn't lend very much credibility to them. In other words, they look like, well, yeah, no wonder you're complaining about the score. You're the two bottom guys, right? But I like the idea that you actually looked into it, figured out that they were over their heads, and you stepped in and scaled back their contract or the scope so that it was manageable. I mean, and I agree with you, that is the responsibility of the host, although it's a difficult tightrope to intervene. Were there
Yeah.
anything that you did that you think helped in that regard, or was it that you just had some good relationships established already?
I think the problem, the situation here is gain the credibility. So you gain the credibility, and actually the second action is actually the risk management. You need to do a very good risk assessment for the project looking forward, and the forecasting what's going to happen in the next 3-6 months and a year, that you can approach the contractor with a predictable plan, how you gonna control that situation. And now you change totally the speech in the meetings. Now you're not talking about what happened last week. Now you're talking is how we're gonna do the job that is coming in front of us. How we're gonna face the challenge. So changing the discussion in the meetings is absolutely key. Is you know that you're going to those meetings that you spend hours talking about what was wrong, and who was the guilty, who is the responsible, who is the accountable. So change this speech to talk about what's going to happen during the next week, how we're going to do it, what is the challenge that we have forward, how we're going to face the challenge. I think the risk management is a big deal. So if you are really doing a very good risk management and risk identification, looking forward in the project, and you go into the meetings to tell them, these contractors, this is what is coming in our way, and that's the way that I'm going to support you to do this job properly. So immediately you're gonna capture their attention. And then later, when you're doing very difficult scope of work and very critical scope of work with no accident, no interruptions, and everything going well, they feel, wow, we can do this job. We can do this with zero harms. It's possible to do it. You get my point? So now,
yeah,
they get confidence that they can have control in the situation. Yeah.
Yeah. I think by the time I got there, which is almost, whatever, nine months since you got the July, right? Like I'm looking at a group of contractors who are seriously interested in their safety technology or methodology. And I'm going, wow, didn't expect. I remember telling you afterwards, going, Hector, that was a really good group of folks to talk to. I was a little nervous, quite frankly, and so that, I've heard this before from people about what they say, whether the penny drops or the light came on. I can't remember exactly what you said about this guy that the complaining disappeared or whatever it was. Do you think that was primarily because they had a sense of control, or do you think it was because the sense of control combined with some of those initial quick wins, like you said, gave them a belief that, wait a minute, we can actually do this? Was it the combination of the two that you think that was the most important, or just the just having the scoreboard?
No, you know that contractors and the resident construction manager, they have normally very challenging contracts, and what they want is just to try to propose actions that are soft actions that are not involving budget and money. And of course, that's the reason why you're going to most of these meetings. You normally listen like, oh, we're gonna do a toolbox meeting to discuss that. We're gonna do the training session. But they want to go to the soft recommendations, but they don't want to do the hard decisions that maybe involve money, because they're afraid maybe they're going to be losing money. So the point is that they're not going to be losing money. They're going to be maybe losing production where they are short in resources from the safety standpoint, and now they cannot move forward the progress. So take a look what happened. Just last week, we were watching, we were checking a contractor was presenting the results, and they are saying that they have, this contractor have in total 500 something scaffolds in their area. And they're saying that the 60% of the scaffolds are green tag and the 40% of the scaffolds are red tag. So I have a conversation then after the meeting with the project director that is from Italy. And I told him, Did you notice your numbers? Did you notice that you have the 40% of your scaffolds are red tag? That means nobody's working there. Your scaffold material is there, stock. And very soon, this contractor is going to go to your office and going to say, we need more money to buy more scaffold material. So now you have 3 issues. You have a safety issue, you have a progress issue, and you have a budget issue that is coming into your way. So that when you show this approach, they immediately pick it up, because this project director immediately say, Hector, you're right. It's going to come in my way. This is about money. This is about budget. I have to take an action here. And it's a safety issue at the end of the day. Yeah.
Right.
So when you're going in that direction, and actually when I was telling you about the managing the risk, one of the big risks that you have in those projects most of the time involve 2 disciplines. Number 1, the heavy lifting, and number 2, the scaffolding management. Those are two areas that require a lot of planning and management, because if you don't do this properly, so you're going to waste a lot of resources, you're going to waste time, and you can create a massive risk that can actually change, totally the progress of the project. Yeah?
A lot of rushing and a lot of frustration too, right? That's
absolutely, sir. Absolutely. So take a look. What happened many times is that you have maybe more cranes than you need, but when you're looking for the crane that you need to do a particular lift, even though the crane is there, you cannot do it because it's totally blocked. The crane is totally blocked. If you don't have a proper planning, you block the crane. Now you cannot move the crane, and now you are in the process that looking for another crane to bring into site, because the right one is stuck in one place of the project. So this happens when you don't have a proper planning. Yeah. Well, the same thing with the scaffolding material.
Just so you all know, I mean, from where I was, which is sort of the admin building, and where there was a training auditorium off to the side, I could see 15 cranes. There were more, but those were the big ones that I could see in the distance. So, like, exactly, Hector. You know, you probably had the crane you needed on site, but you couldn't get it there or whatever because of the planning. And now people have to scramble and they have to rush. And this is one of the things that I've said to folks a lot, is that nobody plans to rush in any of the contracts. Yep. But when your subcontracting company makes a mistake, and that mistake puts you behind schedule, the temptation to rush to make up the time is really, well, especially if you're the supervisor who screwed up, you forgot the part, whatever it was, your temptation to rush or to encourage the crew to, hey, I'm sorry, that's kind of how it happens. It's not that the people plan to rush, right? So when I look at something like size, the scope of the project that you had, that's what I was trying to say to Ian with the thing, is going, you're just, it's difficult for me to believe with something like this, that despite all of the planning and despite the upfront work you've done with the leadership group and the contractors, that at that subcontractor level, some of these errors, mistakes, and human factors, especially with people complacent around like 10, 11, 10 feet, 11 feet, or 3 or 4 meters kind of thing, Hector, all of that stuff was where I was really concerned, was that, not so much with the big ones like Lindy and stuff that you had there, but with the subcontractors, and going, these guys are really inclined to rush to make people happy. And if they're behind, the tolerance that they have from their own boss is 0. So, like,
Larry, contractor man, contract.
Yeah, they're very eager to please, is all I'm getting at it. In other words, saying don't rush is not going to work. When it's their mistake, they are going to do almost whatever they can to cover that up so they don't look bad, right? And so that's that's a huge challenge. It was one of the things I was really worried about. Did you guys address that at all with the subcontractors after I left, Hector, or how did you deal with the small guys?
Well, you know that, Larry, one of the challenges that you have is actually classify your contractor. Do contractor management is very important from the safety standpoint. You have a contractor here that are world class, like L&T is a great contractor, Technimon, fantastic contractor, Linde, BTV. So they're contractors, they have a very mature systems in place and processes and procedures. Their management are company management. They have been with them for more than 10, 15 years working in the same company. They know the company inside, the processes. So these people, for them, it's very easy to manage the situation. We have also General Electric, for example, working with us. So those are contractors. They have very mature process, and you can manage them different, because you can rely in their own systems and you can rely in their own safety professionals in the field to manage their safety plans. And the only that you have to do is just auditing and control them and make them follow the same process that you have to rank them in the same level with the other contractors. So, but when you have these kind of contractors, of course, they help you to build a culture because they're with you. So your partnership with them, they help you with the small contractors. But then later you have the small contractor that I'm gonna break in two categories. The small contractor that is the contractor from the house. That is actually the contractor that have been working in this refinery from day one. They were here when the refinery was in construction. They have been here doing turnarounds and maintenance job. And they always gonna be here because there are people from here, from the area. So there are guys from the house. Many of them, they're saying, oh, I have been working in this refinery. When I came here first time, I was just a supervisor. Now I'm the construction manager. So very nice people with very high identification with all the company values. Many of them, they already adopt from EM, the injury and incident-free workplace approach. So they already participating in those programs. So these people are absolutely useful for us because they support the program, and also they're willing to learn. So they're, whatever we are giving them new, like the loss prevention indicator and the potential hurt level, they're learning, they're implementing, and they're sharing actually they're very happy with the success that they have. I have one contractor in particular that I would like to mention here. Is a BRC, is a contractor, have been working here for a long time, and with HML. And when I came here and we did the first LPI evaluation for them, they got 65%. And I always remember the president construction manager, he said, I was believing that I was doing right. And I was believing that I have very strong safety program. And when I saw the score, I was in shock the first time. Then when I was reviewing the areas for improvement, I absolutely agree. So immediately for me, it was a wake-up call. I started to work in the implementation of all the preventive actions. And now VRC is one of the contractors that is over 90%. So it doesn't mean, Larry, that they cannot have a very serious accident. They also can have a very serious accident, but they have a strong system in place. The possibilities and the probability have been reduced drastically. And that's exactly what this business is about. Yeah.
Very quickly, Hector, could you just share with us some of the highlights on that scoring system? Like, I would imagine there would be, certain things about, safety orientation for all of your employees, doing crew talks, doing risk assessments, hazard IDs, potentially observations or safety contacts. Can you tell us what goes into that scoreboard for the contractors?
Yes, the loss prevention indicators is based in the lifesaver rules. So we pick a number of lifesaver rules that based in the OGP and the Oil Gas Producer Association. So we took the lifesaver rules from that place, and we were identifying the key factors for success in every single lifesaver rule. So, you know, the lifesaver rules basically are permit to work and job hazard analysis, confined space, excavation, rigging and lifting, no destructive test, safety, lockout, checkout. So those are the lifesaver rules. But if you go and you do a consultation with your management team and you ask them, what is the thing that is stopping you to be 100% successful in the implementation of these particular rules? They're going to tell you, we have problem to fill the gap here, here, and here. Well, those are the factors that you going to enforce and check in the score in the field. So practically, the user of the system is picking the factors that he believes he needs to control and measure to make sure the lifesaver rules are being implemented properly in the field. So now, when you do the tracking of these lifesaver rules in the loss prevention indicators, that actually is being done with the safety observation done by all the safety organization, contractor plus, owner plus, PMC. So all these observations are going into this system and is being classified following this matrix. And then the results are being shown every week to every contractor. And every contractor is competing with themselves. They are not competing with somebody else. They're competing with his past performance in the last week. So this is one of the things that we're telling them. I said, listen, you cannot compare with the other contractor because he has different scope of work than you. You're competing against yourself.
Excellent.
So you are competing with the last performance that you have last week. Okay, and now you have to consider the obstacles and the new challenge that you have with the new risk that you're going to be incorporating in the following week. Yeah. So I think this approach has been very constructive for these guys.
I like the approach of you're playing against the golf course. You're not playing against the other team. I really like that. Yeah, that's yeah. I want you to improve from last week, not you improving in your ranking in the standings so much. That's somewhat indicative at the higher level, but it's not. What you're looking for is that motivation right within the contractors. That's excellent, Hector. Excellent idea. Again, just so everybody kind of gets it, because I'm sure I'm not the only one trying to make some notes here. The things that go, like you've got your life-saving rules, most companies do. So what you're doing, you're going and saying, okay, what could possibly interfere or get in the way of those life-saving rules? And then is there a certain process you work with the contractors and the leaders at your company, then the host, to eliminate those gaps or to figure that out and to problem solve? And how much time do you spend on that every week with them?
Yeah, basically, Larry, is a report that we produce every week, and the report is individual for each contractor. And the contractor, once they receive the report, we have different range in the ranking score. If their score is lowest than 75, they have to present a recovery plan, and the recovery plan have to be presented to the safety manager and to the project director, and we approve it, and then they have to move forward to do the implementation. Basically, they have to go with the list of the different observations and work in eliminating or mitigating or protecting the different risks and hazards that were identified in the different observations. To give you an idea, we collect data every month about 5,000 observations, safety observations. These 5,000 safety observations are classified in this system, and the observations are being done using the field safety officers that we have in our organization. We knew from the beginning that our supervision in the field will be quite weak, and the way that we support the supervision in the field was adding a force of safety officers that is right now integrated for, at the beginning was 72 safety officers. And now we increase the number, considering that we're getting into commissioning and pre-commissioning. We're adding 15 more. So we're going to 87 safety officers split in the different areas. You know, the project have very extensive areas, so cover all these areas with a safety officer is a big deal. It's a big job.
So did you have to hire all of those 72 people, Hector?
Yes, sir. This is actually the next action that I was taking, was in considering all the limitations and the situation that we were having here. So we make the decision to review the safety organization. And one of the actions that we took was actually bring the field safety officers. Looking forward, they will be the executors of this looking for these safety observations to fit the loss prevention indicator and the potential hurt level. So that was part of the actions that we took.
Were they permanent employees, Hector, or are they on employment contracts for the duration of the project?
They're contract for the duration of the project.
Okay. That makes to me that sounds like a fair bit of overhead, though. Like a fair bit of expense to have that kind of on-site field safety supervision. I'm just wondering how many folks.
Larry, you know that if you're working in Canada and US, you don't do that. You don't have field safety officers. So normally, most of this job is done directly by the person responsible doing the job. Yeah. And you have safety advisors and safety consultants that are going around just promoting safety and helping people when they have difficulties, helping people to understand the application of rules and requirements and procedures. But you don't have safety people actually executing safety job in the field for the different areas. This is actually part of the duties and responsibility in the line of operation. Yeah, it's totally different approach.
Well, I know, that's why I was sort of like, I thought I better make sure I just, punctuated it or highlighted it a bit, because it's not something that a lot of folks, you're right, over here or in Europe would necessarily look at as a viable option. But, when I look at the size of that project, like, it was as far as the eye could see. Like, cranes that you could see just barely on the curvature of the earth. It's hard for me to get the scope across to y'all, and I should probably have had some better pictures to show everybody just how big this is. But nevertheless,
but Larry, in the organization part, I would like to say something. Is that I have the team that I have here integrated by employees from HML. The direct employees from HML is just 7 engineers. And those 7 engineers are very talented people. So they're young engineers. They were hired for the petrochemical project, but they are permanent employees. They're gonna be with the company for the operation. So these guys are absolutely talented people. So they have a position that is called in this part of the world the assistant managers. You know that in this part of the world, the organization go from assistant manager, the managers, assistant general manager, and vice president. That's more or less the breaking down in the organization. So these guys are actually doing a job for a safety manager in the field, because I didn't have any other option. Most of these guys practically are learning in the battlefield. So, but they're brilliant. They have been putting on the table a lot of practical knowledge and a lot of dedication, and they have been helping and supporting and learning. That would be fantastic. I'm very privileged to working with these guys. These guys are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Speaking of things, there, plug my computer in, Hector. Go upstairs. We are getting close to I think the 45-50 minute mark. I'm gonna start looking a bit at the chat line for some questions. Hector, have you hit zero harm, and do you truly believe zero harm is possible while we still employ the human factor? Is zero a target or an aspiration? Well, we kind of covered that question. I'm not sure who asked that, but Keith, right? First of all, hi, Keith. And I don't know if you remember Keith Hector. He was the MC on one of our panels. But more of an aspiration, I think, Keith. But Hector, let me ask you, like, when you talked about it wasn't zero harm. Hector said it a few times. It's the injury and incident-free workplace, which is, I think, pretty much the same idea as zero harm, certain same mindset. Were you, well, you tell us, Hector, was it much more the mindset, or was it the actual target that you were trying to drive with these people? I was always under the mindset.
Let me tell you, I'm looking for the trend to zero. As long as the curve is going down, and looking for the curve for the total recordable incident rate and lost time incident rate is going in the trend to zero, we're going in the right path. So I believe, because I'm a professional in this, I have been all my life, and I believe that zero harm, zero injuries is possible. Yes, I believe that. And I preach that, and I practice to get this done. But I also know that in some circumstances it's quite challenging, it's very difficult. That's the reason when you look into my program, one of that we implement here, one of the things that I was working very hard was to have a proper upgrade for our emergency response plan and rescue plan, because I know that when you have a project in this size, you have to be prepared for the worst, and you have to be prepared for real emergencies. When this come out, it's very important that you have a team that can perform professionally to get the situation under control. So that means that you have to be prepared also for this possibility. This possibility is there every day. Okay, so we need to accept that.
You know, we never got to that when we were talking about zero harm, but I think brilliant is that you talk about zero harm, and yes, it's possible. We've all gone a day without hurting ourselves. Why can't we go more than one day? Really, you know, we have the ability. But to say that it's reality would be ridiculous. So we're not slacking. You know, we're not getting rid of the airbags and the seat belts and the hard hats and the emergency. And so to show everybody what you're doing for emergency preparedness, especially with a petrochemical facility, I think really does a nice job of balancing that in people's heads. So, you know, good on you for that one. That was a smart thing to do. Let me see what the next questions are. As shared by Mr. Hector, I feel the game changer he brought in the picture was the loss prevention indicators, the scoreboard. My question, what are the methods being used in other parts of the world for quantification of contractor safety performance? Well, I'm not sure Hector or I know what is exactly being used all over the world.
Where, you know, what happens in other part of the world is that you do contractor auditing, and normally contractor auditing also have a kind of a scorecard that can be used to be ranking the contractor. But you know, also rank the contractor for their safety performance. You rank the contractor also for their abilities to do the job, for their skills, for the previous experience, and for their ability to, from the financial standpoint, to execute the job. So, and then at the end, you have a different rank of contractors, and depending of the rank, they can access to different level of contracts, from the financial standpoint. And that's the way that is getting done in other parts of the world. I have to say that in Canada, it's kind of challenging to the implementation of loss prevention indicator. And the reason is that nobody wants to accept they have a performance less than 100% because it can have contractual implications. If you're going to the meeting saying that I'm performing 95%, maybe your client will be saying, well, I'm gonna stop your payment in 5% until you improve. And when you improve, I release the other 5%. That actually is fair. So if you see from that, so that's a reason that in Canada, remember in Canada, the safety system is based in fines. So every time that you are saying that you don't have 100% means that you are failing. If you're failing to the local requirements. If you're failing to the local requirements, a disciplinary action have to be applied. Most of the time you have to pay a fine, yeah? So in Canada, it's quite challenging to do that, okay?
Yeah, it's also, I think the idea that the scoreboard needs to be obviously somewhat efficient in and of itself, but it has to be perceived as fair by the people who are being scored. And it took you, like you say, a fair bit of time from May until July before you got, I think you said the first one to accept it.
Yep.
I'm not sure if it was the first one or if it was the last one, Hector, but I mean, in other words, 2 months though of getting people to accept the scoreboard, but then once they did and they believed that the scoreboard actually affected the reality and that they had control, you got a whole new level of cooperation out of those contractors. So like, I thought you did a pretty good job of answering pretty much all of the questions around that, and even a bit about what was on the scoreboard. If there are any others, though, real quick, everybody, that we didn't get answered for you, please get them up there, and hopefully Mike can put them on the screen. Although the project is not complete, has the project started to create the lessons learning database based on initiatives that have provided promising results?
Yeah, that's for Juan Carlos. Juan Carlos Montes is a good friend from he's in Fort McMurray, I think, still.
Oh, really? Well, hello,
yeah.
Hello, Fort McMurray, and all the friends there as well too. Yeah.
Yes, Juan Carlos, we're already collecting all the lessons learned for this project. Absolutely, it's a lot of lessons learned that we have to learn from the contractor standpoint. A lot of things that were not covered properly. Let me give you an example. Material management was a big deal, have been a big deal for us. So we have one contractual deal that said that the only way the contractor gonna get paid is when they deliver the material on the field. So what happened, contractors deliver the material in the field to get paid. And then when they got paid, the material then is there in the middle of nowhere. Nobody's taking care from the material. The material is placed maybe in the worst location, the location that is not actually the best location for the material. And then we have a lot of congestion, housekeeping issues, stacking material issues, and everything is driven by money. So that was a big mistake. I remember in Singapore, we have another mistake. Another mistake we did in Singapore was putting milestone based in a particular element of the structure. When this particular element in the structure will be installed, in that moment, the contractor will be entitled to claim $25 million bonus. Do you imagine that? $25 million bonus. So my project director dropped the project in a way that he was doing the installation of this structure without access ladders, without nothing, just working from man lift and cranes, just to put the element that the contract was saying, just to claim the $25 million. Then later, all the working at high issues that we have and all the access issues that we have in this project was related to this particular target that was driven the project in that direction. Sometimes these kind of targets that are being set in the corporate offices, sitting, bunch of guys sitting in the office trying to figure it out, how to create incentive to accelerate the project, produce a lot of unsafe conditions in the field, a lot of complacency, rushing, all the things that Larry kept talking. Absolutely.
Well, that's what I was asking about. You got there.
Yeah.
You got there after all of that really important stuff had already been signed, sealed, and decided. So hopefully, my guess is that, Ian did a good job of getting the groundwork laid for you, because it's so very difficult if somebody's done something like that. You got $25 million is a fair bit of incentive to rush. It is, and it's going to
Yep.
make people work longer hours, so they're going to be tired, and then they're going to make mistakes, which is going to make the people frustrated, and they're going to need to rush even more. And you can get, although it's not the best analogy for India, the snowball effect, right? Where the frustration, the rushing, and the fatigue and the complacency all just compound on each other. And then you've got huge penalty clauses if you don't get it done on time. And so now people start looking at things like, you know, we should do another risk assessment because we moved the crane, but that's 5 minutes we really don't have right now because we're behind, right? And so that's where things really start to creep in. But you managed, Hector, you managed to do this without that. I mean, like Ian had that already done. So when you got there, at least have contracts that you could work with where your hands weren't tied behind your back, because that's huge, important.
No, we're already a very good set of contracts in place, and safety requirements were included in the as a part of the contract. I think the problem that we were facing was more related to improper estimation of the resources to manage the project. And we were, and this is part of the lesson learned. I think that they estimate they can be managing this project with a certain organization from the PMC company, and the safety department that they have were only including 11 persons to manage the whole project. And you can see right now the full organization, if we include safety departments for the different contractors, we're talking about 350 safety professionals in the different contractors and the different levels that we have in the project. And of course, it's absolutely necessary when you're talking about 24,000 workers in the field. Absolutely, you need to have at least 350 people working in safety to get everything proper coordinated. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess well, the one last question is going forward. The project's going to be done, you think, September.
Yep.
What risks do you see in the transition from the construction to operation, Hector, in terms of the people? I think the people and the human factor. There will be more commissioning activities with different type of pressure and human factor. So any specific idea to deal with that was the exact question.
Yes. You know that right now, the only chance that we have to save time and actually recover the time that we lost with the COVID is actually going to simultaneous operation. We're implementing two initiatives, two processes, one that is called coexistent procedure and the other that is called simultaneous operation. Coexistent procedure is a process where we move forward one part of the process or the system into commissioning and operation, while we are still working in construction, another part of the process or unit. So, and simultaneous operation is actually the evaluation, the risk assessment of the permit process to make sure that you have permits for activities that are compatible, that can be executed at the same time in the same location. And if it's not possible, you are doing the proper planning and spicing the materials, or doing the activities, or providing protections that allow you to do both activities at the same time, or doing the activities displaced in timing. So these two processes, of course, is a great opportunity, but it's a great risk, Larry, because you know, right now we are moving forward to put in operation all the utilities. It's the first thing that you do in this project, is trying to have a process air, instrument air, fire water, cooling water system in place. Because of course you're gonna use those utilities to do your pneumatic tests, your hydraulic tests, your flushing, and all the different preparation for the units and pre-commissioning activities that you have to do in the unit. So we're already moving forward in that direction. So and of course that normally happens in many projects, in mega projects like this, when you maybe have 5,000 people in the field. But now, take a look what happened. We're doing this with 24,000 people in the field. So it's quite complicated. So one of the big risks that we were doing during the last week was actually doing the steam blowing for the steam system. So we start to do the internal cleaning of the steam system, doing steam blowing. And we're ramping the temperature of the steam system to more than 400 degrees Celsius. So, of course, when you're doing this process, you don't have any other option to shut down all the construction activities in the pipe rack to avoid people to access to this particular line in the moment that you are testing the line and until you're making sure that all the potential contact areas and risk areas are properly controlled and everything is working well and you can allow people to come back to work. So, of course, all these decisions impact in the progress of the construction in this stage, but sometimes it's a price that you have to pay to move forward. And of course, you know that is the only way that you have to save some time and to accelerate the process from construction into pre-commissioning, commissioning, and handover. So you don't have any other way. This is practice that have been in place for more than 20 years. And I have been doing this in all the projects that I worked before, and it's risky, but you need to have a lot of risk assessment and a lot of evaluation and training for people working in the field to do it properly.
Yeah, I mean, I would think it would be a fairly risky transition because you've still got construction going on, and yet you're trying to bring the production and the units online. You've got to do, all of the testing and everything first, like you said, So, and I think also from just a complacency point of view, whenever things seem to be kind of winding down, people tend to, like, if you will, they tend to really slow down before they're actually at the finish line. COVID is a prime example of how, as soon as we think we got the vaccine, now the next thing you know, we're at record numbers, at least in Canada. And I think part of it has to do with when people let their guard down. Anyhow, Hector, we're out of time, and it's past the hour. But I actually lost track of the time just listening to you. Thank you so much for being on the show. I think I speak for almost all those safety managers listening. There's a lot of valuable insights, Hector, that you shared with all of us. Thank you very much. And again, congratulations to you and also to Ian on being able to manage this mega project so very close to zero harm, but to have been able to install that zero harm mindset in 24,000 people that are kind of transitioning in every 2 months is really a phenomenal achievement. And everybody, I kind of felt it when I was there, and you can kind of feel the culture of a place when you're there. So it was genuine. So Hector, thank you very much for being on the show. And hopefully when we all get to travel again, I can get up to see you and Ian again in Bathinda. It was amazing up there. Everybody, the next show, Larry Wilson Live, is on April 29th, and it is with Mark Raquel, and he is the president and CEO of Signacast. They're a couple $2 billion a year operation globally. And the title is The Evils of Automation versus the Evils of Human Error. And we could probably change it to, is it just another myth, or separating the myth from the fact? But, the evils of automation versus the evils of human error. And it should be a very interesting show. Mark has an incredible sense of humor. Just very taken with him as we just started talking about it. So it'll be at 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern, and I think that'll be 10:30 for you again in India, Hector. So once again, everybody, Hector, thanks very much for being on the show. Really appreciate it. And hopefully you can come on one of the expert panels again too. we'll be talking about just culture and accountability in a few months in India, and hopefully either you or Ian could join us for that one. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Larry Wilson live with Mark Rakelm, and we'll be talking about the evils of human error versus, well, the evils of automation versus the evils of human error. Thanks very much, everybody. See you then.
Thank you, Larry. Bye.
Bye, Hector. Bye-bye.